Welcome to Lead Pods, the official leadership podcast from USMB for pastors and church leaders, where our goal is to increase our impact together.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 92 of the USMB Lead Pods. My name is Matt Ersman, and once again, excited to share a really great conversation with you. Today, I got the honor, the privilege of speaking with the two presidents of our MB schools, Dr. André Stephens from Fresno Pacific University out in California, as well as Dr. David Janzen from Tabor in Hillsboro. Both of these guys have been on the podcast before, and they are both in the first just handful of years as presidents of these schools. So when both of them were first hired, we had them on the podcast for you just to get to know them a little bit. But now that they're a few years in, we thought it'd be fun to get them together and just hear the latest about the schools. How are things going at Fresno and at Tabor? What are the latest news? What could we be praying for? How are they personally handling the challenges of being a college president? We cover a lot of ground in our limited time together. We talk about what the faith temperature is like on their campuses. We touch briefly on the economics of higher ed and how that continues to be a challenge. We talk about the leadership shortage that we've been talking about in USMB land here, how there tends to be a little bit of a vacuum of young leaders in our culture today, especially in the church. This was a really fun and really insightful episode that I think you're really going to enjoy. I know I mentioned this kind of a lot, but I went to Sterling College and Regent University, so I always like to rub that in just a little bit here and there for fun. But man, I just am so impressed with both Dr. Stephens and Dr. Janzen. They're both great men running great colleges, and I know they really have a heart of ministry behind their jobs, and that just comes through in the way that they communicate. So I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think you will as well. So let's take a quick break to hear from our friends over at Fresno, and then we'll get to our conversation with Dr. David Janzen from Tabor and Dr. André Stephens from Fresno.
Deciding on the right college is a big deal. At Fresno Pacific University, they get it. They are a private, nonprofit Christian university where your academic success is a top priority. Their focus on a Christ-centered education runs deep from the classroom to the field. Professors connect you to research and internships. Financial aid makes your education affordable. And with their 2- and 4-year guarantee, you'll graduate on time to launch your career. Visit fpu.edu for more information about their undergrad, graduate, and degree completion programs. Fresno Pacific University. Possible happens here.
All right, my friends, so we are in for a treat today. We have the honor of having not one, but two college presidents joining us today. It's a miracle that the stars aligned and their calendars both were available at the same time. So today we're talking to Dr. David Janzen, the president of Tabor College, as well as Dr. André Stephens from Fresno Pacific. You guys have both been on the podcast before, so this is, I think, your second turn for both of you. Welcome back. Grateful to have you. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks so much. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. It's good to see you both again and to have you on. So we were chatting beforehand. So Dr. Janzen, we were kind of joking that this is your third year. You're a junior now in your college presidency. Dr. Stephens, you're just a sophomore. You're just following on his coattails.
Yep, I'm a baby president.
Like it or not, you two will probably forever be linked since you started around the same time in MB schools. So I know you guys. Yeah. I get the impression that you guys stay in touch and kind of compare notes a lot. Yeah. But a lot of people listening don't get to hear really ongoing updates from either of you personally or from your schools. And so we just wanted to take a minute, now that you're a few years in, just to hear how things are going, hear ways that the USMB family can support you. I just kind of give you a chance to talk to people who you may not get to talk to on a regular basis. So Dr. Stephens, let's start with you. You're at Fresno. Again, this is your second year. Maybe for people, if they haven't met you yet, if they maybe missed your first episode, a little bit of bio background, and then we'll jump in.
Yeah, again, thank you, Matt, for having me. And it's great to be on with President Janzen as well. We did meet a year ago at a new President's Institute, and Dr. Janzen and his wife, Karen, became fast friends with me and my wife, Beth. The college presidency is, as you know, not an easy job. And so those of us who are called to it we need your prayers and we support one another. And Dr. Janzen and Karen have been kind with Beth and I. Just quickly bio, my family of origin is from Central America, from Panama. I was born in New York, but grew up in Southern California, went to undergraduate at another Christian university, Biola University, and met my wife, Beth, there. and we got married soon after college. We have three, I think I can say adult kids. Our youngest is with us. She's 20 years old and a student at Fresno Pacific. And then we have a 24 and a 27-year-old, just both boys. So 2 boys and a girl. And then my career was spent at Biola, 31 years there. 25 of those years was in enrollment management, and then 6 years in student development. And then was called to the Fresno Pacific presidency a little over a year ago. And that's the brief bio.
Very cool. Well, great to have you on again. Dr. Janzen, I'll toss to you. Same thing. Again, you've been on the show. A lot of our audience knows you, but let's do the quick bio again and rundown of who you are and how you landed at Tabor.
Sure. And I'll say the same thing. Thanks, Matt. It's great to be with you again. And Dr. Stephens, really have enjoyed getting to know him this last year and his wife. And it's just a privilege to be presidents together. Background, I came to Tabor a little over 2 years ago from Cal Poly is where I'd been most recently. I was a professor of software engineering, computer science there, and had a software startup as well. I spent my career kind of balanced between academia and in industry, worked in the software industry for a number of years. Went to Tabor, did my graduate work at the University of Kansas, PhD in computer science, and grew up in Kansas, and met my wife who's from California. She both went to Tabor for 2 years and to Fresno Pacific for 2 years. So we have that joint connection there.
Very cool. And I've given you both a hard time about this before, but I'm a pretty proud Sterling alum. I went to Regent University. So even though we have different backgrounds, I'm honored to have you guys on today. And I've just been really impressed with both of you, both as we talked before, but also what you've done for your respective schools already. So really grateful for both of you for being on today. So I guess since you are relatively new in these roles, I'd just love to hear from both of you. This is your first time being president. What's it like to be a college president? What are some of the kind of fun surprises, and what are some of the hard things that you've discovered as you're now a couple years in? Dr. Stephens, I'll start with you.
Okay. So fun surprises. Well, so a couple quick thoughts, and I mentioned this in the intro. Being a college president is, especially at this time, it's it's pretty challenging. It's a historic time in education, and certainly Christian higher education, complex, a lot of pressures. But we do get to have a front row seat, I think, in Christian higher ed of students' lives being formed and transformed. In our classrooms and Zoom rooms and on our campuses. And Fresno Pacific has a main campus plus 4 regional campuses. And so the surprise, I guess, I've been in higher ed for 30 plus years, but being a president is a front row seat to that work, certainly through faculty and staff as we consider holistic education, not just in the classroom, but also in the co-curricular. And then seeing students' lives being formed. And at Fresno Pacific, it's an open enrollment campus, right? So there's students who come who have deep faith, and then those who are discovering their faith and everything in between. And being able to be a part of that is truly amazing. Specifically at Fresno Pacific as well, I think the beauty of the Central Valley of California is agricultural, right? So 60% of the nation's fruits, vegetables, and nuts come from the Central Valley. Wow. And I grew up in California, but it's Southern California. So it's almost like California is like 2 or 3 states in one. And the Central Valley has a rich beauty in that agricultural side of it, which is amazing. Obviously, the people are amazing, and that's been good. There's salt of the earth people. And I think some of the interesting challenges here, again, I think for me, just learning of the Central Valley, it is different. In that most of the students, of course, come from the region, which is typical for our schools. And our region, compared to the rest of the state, has a low college going rate, has a low college completion rate, is more diverse than the rest of the state. And then the socioeconomic is a little bit poor. So learning that, and it's actually inspiring to serve students that are typically invisible in higher ed.
And that's great. We'll dive into those things a little bit more here. So yeah, Dr. Janzen, what about you?
Yeah, a few of the surprises. I guess I was not terribly surprised with just the joy of interacting with students. I've been with students for a lot of years, but it really is the part of the job that is just most fulfilling, satisfying, exciting is seeing when students come to know Christ, when they grow in their faith, and just in general, seeing their lives worked out. A few surprises for me. One, along the lines of what President Stephens was just talking about, at Tabor, I was surprised being in a rural community in Kansas, how incredibly diverse our student body is. We have students that come from 39 different states and 28 different countries. Almost half of our students are students of color. That's not something that's not the way Tabor was when I was a student years ago. And so that was a bit of a surprise stepping in, a good surprise. It's really been fun interacting with that diversity of students. A couple of other things for me. One was the incredible goodwill of the Tabor community that we received when we arrived. And many people would remember the day that we were moving to Kansas from California, our youngest daughter had an accident and broke her neck, and they thought they weren't sure she'd live, and then thought she'd never walk again. And especially in that context of trauma, just the way the community, both the faculty, staff, students, but also the extended Tabor community, was just reaching out to us and loving on us and praying for us. That surprised me, how much we would feel that and sense that. It was really great. And then just how many people there are to meet in this job. I think that was, I probably knew it, but I continue to be surprised just how many new people we meet on a weekly, monthly basis.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, before we get too far, I hope this is okay. Do you mind, can you remind us, how is your daughter? Can you remind us how that all turned out?
Oh, thanks for asking. She's doing amazingly well. She came, she had been in Tucson, Arizona. She came and had to live with us. She was in a wheelchair. She's now walking. She has a limp, but she is walking and is living in many ways a very normal life. She enrolled at Tabor. We did not ever expect that, but she's been having a great experience the last 2 years, and she even just got engaged a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think she's doing remarkably well. Thanks for asking.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, you both just mentioned diversity, and I guess before we go too far, that's kind of been an ongoing theme in recent episodes, even on Lead Pods, where that's come up in other conversations where in our churches, that's becoming more and more common. I think it's probably just because in our country, that's becoming more common, where our country's more and more diverse. And so our churches and our schools are also following that pattern. Would either one of you mind, how does that affect your day-to-day work as a president? Does that affect programs that you're developing or your admissions process, or how does that diversity affect you day to day?
For us, with such an international population, one of the things we work hard at is integrating students, and they've been embracing that. And I love that even though we maybe have some little pockets of students who speak Spanish or students who are from the UK, they really have become good friends with others. And I think part of that is because we're small and we have a single dining hall that everybody eats there, and everybody's residential, so they all live on campus. And so they mix really well. Yeah, we do think a fair amount about just how the words we use translate for other cultures, for people coming from different places. And there's a lot of assumptions that we make that we need to be very careful of. And we're constantly trying to remind each other of that. How might that be interpreted by somebody who's from South America or from Asia? So, and recruiting from international is a little bit different than, recruiting locally. A lot of it for us comes through athletics. And so our coaches are the ones that are most on the front lines of finding these students that are coming in and playing sports. And I just love seeing them integrating and working together.
Yeah, I would just add to what President Janzen is saying. First of all, I think the beauty of a diverse student body, and certainly hopefully a diverse staff and faculty, is that it actually represents kingdom, right? Or I think the kingdom that is to come, and the kingdom that they say already, but not yet, kingdom of God, right? And so that diversity is a testimony, as Jesus says in John 17, of his presence and his love. And so we're thrilled. Certainly regionally, we have diversity. We have 32 different countries represented at FPU, and that's, again, the global representation of the body. I just came back from Indonesia, spent nearly 2 weeks there, and I was with other people from China and Kazakhstan and the Philippines, and it just the thinking Dr. Janzen was getting at this, what the words we use, how we think and process. It's not just an Americentric way or Western way, right? There's beauty and truth to be found in the cultures. And certainly in the classroom, I would just add in the classroom and in our Zoom rooms is that when you have a diverse student body, it breeds not only learning like information or knowledge, like head knowledge, right? But it breeds empathy, right? For the quote unquote, the other, understanding, kindness, compassion, and we hope love, right? At the end of the day, we still don't live proximate to people that are different than us, right? We still live in segregated communities, but when you're in a classroom that way, there's something that happens that cannot happen when you're distant or when you're operating on stereotypes. And so there's an intentionality that we have to have, right, in our curriculum, the pedagogy, and then even the co-curricular, how we bring people together and give them voice to their experience. So I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think the thing that is actually dividing some in our country, at our colleges, certainly Christian colleges, we can be an example of what it looks like to be together in harmony. Doesn't mean we're all the same, but that diversity, there's unity in the diversity under Christ. And that's the beautiful testimony, I think, of a Christian college.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. That's very cool. That's a good transition. One thing I wanted to ask you both about is obviously we're MB, you guys are both MB schools, and I'm sure I know both of you well enough to know that your faith is very important to you and for your personally and for your schools. Could you both just share kind of a spiritual climate update and maybe what part of the MB distinctives, MB Confession of Faith, anything kind of particularly pressing on your campuses right now for either one of you?
So right. I think you guys know I'm a son of a pastor. My wife is the daughter of a pastor. So we are committed to the church, and now we have been, and actually, interestingly, Beth and I were both baptized by an MB Canadian pastor back in the early 90s. And so the kind of a long history there, but specifically to the spiritual vitality of our campuses, I do believe coming out of now another year out of the core of COVID, I would say, is that there's a sense, certainly among our faculty and staff, and even as I talk to students, and I don't particularly like to use the word things are getting back to normal, but I would just say there's more of a sense of vitality, connection, processing. I'm very intentional at FPU, and I was visiting Tabor just a few weeks ago, and I was sharing with Dr. Janzen the things that we're doing to help facilitate or cultivate the spiritual life and what I would say, what the word I'm using at FPU, renewal of our students and of our campus. And that we have to be very intentional about that. We can't just take it for granted. And so that is everything from, and just a few things I'll name just because of time. One is, and some are simple and some are deeper, but certainly like looking at our curriculum and those Bible classes that students take, and how are we leaning into those in ways that are formational and transformational for our students. We've added another person in our Office of Spiritual Formation to help do ministry on our campus. I've added scripture. We've added scripture on our banners throughout the campus, just declaring who God is and a reminder of who we are in Christ, and as a way of encouragement. And then in the next year, FPU currently does not have required chapel service for our students, but we will be bringing that back in the next year. And that's breaking news here. I don't know when this is going to be broadcast, but that will come out. So I think just to shortly answer your question, that the spiritual piece of our campus has to be different, right? In our context, coming to a place like Fresno Pacific should be different than going to Fresno State or Fresno City College. How is that different? Well, we believe that in holistic education, meaning the spiritual side of who we are, is integrated, if you will, into everything that we do. And so my cabinet leaders are, and our faculty and staff are committed to bringing that holistic education and really showing Christ to the students who are there and being formed and transformed by the Spirit's work.
That's one of my favorite things is just seeing students growing in their faith. I feel like the campus culture is outstanding at Tabor right now. I think even my first year to the second year, I saw interesting differences and changes that happened. That my second year, many people heard of this, but early in the year, we had a guest speaker in one of our chapels, and we do require chapel, but we also have a lot of voluntary student-led worship services that are very well attended. But in one of these early required chapels, the speaker gave his testimony, and he was a Pastor Noe Garcia from Phoenix, Arizona, and he gave an altar call, a Southern Baptist style altar call, which is not a normal thing in our chapel, but we saw 40 students come forward and make decisions for Christ. It was real. It felt like genuine revival. I had the privilege, but also the burden of coming up after this and closing the service. And I just was so emotional in having witnessed this thing. And later that evening, like 90 students got together, just kind of impromptu out on the lawn, just for a prayer meeting, just to pray for continued revival and growth. And it was so great last year that happened at the beginning of the academic year, because so many of these students got involved in small group Bible studies, student-led Bible studies, and started getting mentored and discipled by people from the churches in town, as well as faculty and staff. And this year, I can't say that we had 40 students go forward in our first chapel, but we have seen students already make decisions for Christ. One young man from Japan, actually a freshman student, and just as a great example. Another student who came to us as a Muslim and has since made a decision to follow Christ, and that was a year ago. And now this year he's leading a Bible study. And as he described it, I'm just one or two steps ahead of the guys I'm teaching, but I'm teaching them what I'm learning. And so I love that. It really feels like our tagline is decidedly Christian, and it feels that way on campus. Like it really feels like an authentic Christian college campus. So praise the Lord for that.
Very cool. That's great. I love hearing those stories. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next up, I'm going to hit you with two of the kind of harder questions, but I warned you both of these were coming. So we'll go dive into some meat here, and then we'll wrap up with anything else that either one of you want to address. Our time always goes really fast. But at the top of a lot of people's mind when we talk about college, higher education, it's always the finances, the scholarships, the affordability. That continues to be in the news and the culture. I think I talked with both of you last time that you were on about that briefly. Again, even in the past 1, 2, 3 years, I feel like it's even changed since last time we talked. So you probably have new thoughts on this. But I want to give both of you a chance for just the state of higher ed and the cost of it. I feel for both of you because I know that the expectations for higher ed are higher than they've ever been. People want beautiful lawns and beautiful buildings and excellent football teams and the best professors in the world, and they want to be able to afford it, right? So those are hard calls for you all to make. There's always these, things about what are politicians going to do? Are some colleges going to be free? How's that going to affect private Christian ed, especially? So I'd love to hear from both of you. What are your most recent thoughts on that? What are your institutions doing to kind of help keep education affordable? And where are things going in the crazy world that we find ourselves in? Dr. Janzen.
Yeah, I can start. You bet. At Tabor, so one of the big things that I guess the message I'd like to get out there is that Tabor College actually is very affordable. There's this perception in the world that college is so expensive and that private colleges are just out of reach, and it's just not true. Tabor is on par cost-wise with public universities. K-State, University of Kansas, we're very similar in price when you look at the full cost. We offer something called all-inclusive pricing, which includes everything from tuition, room, and board, but all fees and even books are included in there. And when you look at that, I think we're actually cheaper than K-State. And so we've worked very hard. Our net cost to students has been about the same for probably a decade at least, which means that they're paying less now than they were 10 years ago because inflation.
Right.
And so it does seem expensive, and it is expensive for many families. I get that, but it's on par with others, even public universities. And we're one of the least expensive private schools in Kansas. I think there's a lot of poor advice out there. There's this idea because wages are so high, you can come out of high school and you can jump right into a job that might even be paying $20 an hour, or, just get a 1-year certificate trade school thing and be making $20, $25 an hour. And I think that's great for many people. That's the right path. But for even more people, 5, 10, 20 years from now, they're going to be saying, well, I'm still in that $20 an hour job.
Right.
And I need that degree. I wished I'd have gotten that degree. And so getting the other skills, communication skills, analytical thinking, critical thinking skills, understanding human psychology and communication, getting good at that with the technical skills as well, really sets you up. And the numbers, the evidence still shows that you're going to make so much more money if that's your measure of the return on investment. It still makes a lot of sense to go to college. And so I'm hoping that the culture will turn around and start to recognize this. We see a lot of families and students that do get that and are understanding that. I'm hoping more widespread that we'll see more understanding for that. But what you described is exactly right. It's so challenging in this environment. The expectations are so high for a college experience, a residential college experience. And yet the willingness to pay for it is not very high. And so we're doing everything on a really limited budget. And we managed to pull it off, provide a great experience and a great campus experience as affordably as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Janzen. And I'll just bounce off of that. I'll take the baton and bounce off of that and reiterate, the cost of a private Christian education is actually more accessible than people believe. Oftentimes they're turned off by sticker shock, right? But it's at FPU, and I know at a number of our institutions, so much of it is subsidized, right? It's certainly by state and federal help grants, but also by generous donors, those who are listening to this podcast, who give to what they believe is transformative education. The facts, again, the data would say, and Dr. Janzen referenced this, right? That in the short term, you can make $20 an hour, but over the course of a lifetime, those who have a college degree still currently in the U.S. make significantly more than those who don't. What's also true is the skills that are gained, they're not just technical skills, right? These are what I would call, and I don't want to call them soft skills, but they're matters of the heart. They're about how we relate. Again, we talked about diversity, right? So kindness, empathy, compassion, love. These are things learned in, if you will, in the crucible of your education. And so there are real pressures, right? Affordability certainly is one. The lingering effects of the pandemic, the value of education, loan, debt. There's what I would call the polarization and politicization of education as well. Those are pressing in. But what we seek to do is to bring wisdom and truth, like what we would call God's goodness, His truth, and His beauty into an educational setting where oftentimes it's not. At Fresno Pacific, at our fall kickoff, I had Dr. Margaret Didham speak, one of our keynote speakers. She is the editor of the Christian Scholars Review. And I wanted her to speak specifically to integration of faith, teaching, and learning, right? Again, what we do at Fresno Pacific, what Dr. Janzen and the faculty and staff do at Tabor is to hopefully bring wisdom into the classroom, right? She talked about information, right? Is it readily accessible? And that's the what, she called it. And then she said there's knowledge, that's the so what. And then there's wisdom, that's the now what, right? What do we do with this information? It's readily accessible, but in our institutions, we're saying that wisdom, God's wisdom, right, is for our life and not just for the individual. Like, we don't believe education is only an individual good. But it is actually a family good. And in our case, we have most of our students are first gen. If you know this, the data on first gen, if your parents did not go to college, the likelihood of you getting a college degree is significantly reduced. It's barely 15%. And so students, not only their lives are changed, but generations are changed because of that degree. So the question I think you're asking is a good one. Is it worth it? That's the question. Is it worth it? And part of what we do is advocate for this, again, transformative education. We're in it because we believe in it. It's hard work, but it is ministry. And I said this before, I'm a big believer in the church. I believe that's God's answer through the work of the Spirit of Jesus' death on the cross and resurrection, that the church is what He has, the vehicle He has used for us. But the reality in our culture is that people don't go to church anymore. You can use the Barna research, the Pew research, any other research. It says fewer people go to church, fewer people read their Bibles, fewer people pray every week. But guess what? There are individuals who are still going to college. And so even if you go to church, you spend an hour, maybe 2, 3 for the best of us at church. But students spend 5, 6, 7 hours a day on a college campus. And we have an opportunity to do something here. So I just want to expand the question a little bit to your point. And I think is it worth it is really the bottom line. And we have to make that argument that it is worth it, but it's contentious right now in a lot of ways. And I think if education is reduced to just me getting a job, then we're going to lose on that, right? Because you can go to a lot easier, cheaper places to get a job, but we're saying this is life transformation. It's more than just a job. We want, again, God's truth, his goodness and beauty. We believe in the shalom or the flourishing of human beings who are made in the image of a great God. And so we treat everyone with dignity and respect. And so it is affordable. Once you get past the sticker shock, we support again through our own institutional grants and funding and generous donors. And I would encourage, your listeners, our listeners and the MB family to continue supporting something where lives are being changed. Students are coming to know the Lord, or they're recommitting their lives to the Lord. They're being baptized here. And in our pool, we had like 7 students from our spring play baptized in the Fresno Pacific pool. I mean, those things are happening. So it's worth that investment, if you will, the opportunity to see really kingdom work being done. I'm passionate about it. Sorry, Matt.
That's great.
That's
excellent. No, that's good. That's awesome. And actually, kind of a lot of what you're saying was kind of leads me to my next one. So it's, of course, you are gaining knowledge in college, but like you were just saying, a huge part of it is leadership development, communication skills, spiritual growth, and even like you mentioned, just learning how to learn, right? Because no matter what we study, you can't never learn again after you graduate, right? We have to all keep learning, and that's a skill that you learn in college, which kind of leads me to my other question I was going to ask you about. In MB circles, we've started talking about this, but even nationwide, there's kind of this thing out there that there's kind of this leadership shortage in a lot of fields. Like there's not enough teachers, there's not enough police officers. In our churches, there's not enough young pastors coming up through the ranks. A lot of our churches need more pastors and church leaders. We're seeing that even in hourly workers, right? There's not enough hourly workers either.
Yeah.
But even on the kind of leadership level, there's just this kind of vacuum of young leaders. You all work with young leaders every day. I guess, first of all, are you seeing that? And what are your schools doing to kind of help raise this next generation of Christian leaders?
Yeah. How much time do we have? So this is obviously can be a long conversation. I will share just a couple quick thoughts.
Sure.
But in no way could cover what I believe you're hitting on is I think you use the word of vacuum in kind of emerging leaders. Again, I was just overseas, and even I would say globally, like the church and Christian schools overseas are saying, like, who is coming up the leadership ranks? So just a couple thoughts. I'm in no way expert to this, but to your point, I think, so one thought, I guess, this is just a thought, is that we have to think about how do we do things differently, given the reality that we're facing. So in other words, it's not just whether it's churches, schools, etc. It's not just bemoaning the fact that there's fewer leaders emerging and like, hey, we have to find people to fill the model that we currently have. So that's a thought. I don't know the answer except to say maybe we have to think through the model. Yeah. Secondly, I believe that I think some of the best leaders to me are great followers. And so I think what we're doing, part of what we do at our school is to develop good followers. And I wonder if part of the challenge is that we don't have people who know how to follow well. Mm-hmm. And so what we need to do is actually develop good followers, and then people will want to become good leaders, right? Or become leaders. So I don't know the answer, Matt, except I think we need to interrogate two things. One is just the models that we have And do we need to shoehorn people into or bemoan the fact that there aren't any leaders, emerging? So we have to interrogate ourselves. Well, why not? And again, lots of layers here. And then two, what does it look like to follow well? And I don't know if maybe that's why people aren't stepping up and into leadership, because we have not developed or modeled what it looks like to follow well.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of our work at our campuses. And not that, well, how do I say this? It's just like we need people who are going to lean into our I'll say this and then pass it off. Sorry. Because I think
great.
we can speak to this a long time, but we, at our campuses, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but at Fresno Pacific, I have shared that we are not students aren't coming here to be protected from the world. They're coming to be prepared for the world that they inhabit. They're not coming here to escape from it. They're coming to be equipped for it, right? Yeah. They're not empty vessels that we just open up their heads and pour in information. They are being cultivated in the integration of truth. And truth is embodied in people, right? The truth is found in a person. His name is Jesus, right? It's not just an idea. It's actually a person. And as we teach, right, and as we model the way, that truth, goodness, and beauty they're embodied in people. And so as it comes to leadership, we have to tease out like, well, why do we need leaders, and what are they to do, and what are the models of that? I would toss out even the way our churches work, certainly in the Western world, right? That's a cultural preference, right? Like there's no biblical evidence of a senior pastor and a youth pastor and a family pastor and a women's pastor. That's just our cultural preference, right? So I was just with people from China who are in an underground church. It looks different, right? And so what is this next? Where's our imagination or the openness to the Spirit of God moving and working in a way that's different than we currently that we're working? So
that's good.
Thank you.
That's great. And I love what you said there, President Stephens, about our students not coming to, be protected, but to be prepared for the world. And we see that happening. I would jump in and just say that I have a tremendous amount of hope for the future. I look on our campus right now and I see the students that are here, and I see future pastors. I see future worship leaders, future lay leaders in the church. And I'm very encouraged by that. I think that we can do a better job in many ways. I think the churches can do a better job of helping to start even in middle school and high school, identifying students that might have ministry-minded paths and tapping them on the shoulder, saying, hey, you might consider this. And in particular, I would love to see our churches do a better job of encouraging all of their students, every high schooler, to at least come and do a campus visit at one of our college campuses, just to see, is this perhaps a place where God might work in your life to develop whatever it is you're going to do, whether you're going into business or to become a physician or a pastor or whatever it may be. And so I'd love to see more of that. We've got a great example right now, a young man from the Lamb district who is about to graduate from Tabor. And this last year, he did an internship in a church up in the Central District. And so even that right there, that's a cool connection that's happening. Yeah. And he was a business major and had some likely jobs already lined up. But that internship and that pastor speaking into his life, all of a sudden he's shifting and saying, I think maybe I'm going to be a youth pastor and I may go to seminary. And those are the kinds of things that we are seeing happen and we need to see happen more. And I think the more that we have students from our churches coming to these Christian colleges, Tabor and Fresno Pacific in particular, and getting into the network, making connections with others from other churches in our conference, the more integrated we are, the more inspired they are. And we're seeing it happen already. I'd like to see it multiplied even more so. I think that we have a number of students who have the mindset and the potential of being in full-time ministry and being pastors. There's so much temptation, and they're being drawn more into industry jobs and corporate jobs, whether it's because of the money or just because they're doing a more aggressive job of recruiting them. And so I think our churches can do a better job of coming on campus, be here, get to know our students. We're doing what we can to try and nudge students towards internships and church things, but the pastors and the churches, lay people actually have to come and get to know them. And we're happy to arrange those kinds of meetings. If somebody comes and says, I want to get to know some ministry-minded students and help keep them within the conference and the denomination and going on and thinking about full-time ministry. So I am very hopeful for the future.
Good. I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that was one of my last questions was part of being in a denomination. And one of the best parts of it is that we get to work together, learn together. We can share things like this. And that was a great transition there. So I guess our time always goes fast. I feel like the three of us could talk for a very long time, but as we begin to close up, I just want to give you a chance to kind of two closing questions. What else can we do to support you as a USMB family? And specifically, what can we pray for? Are there upcoming events? What other things are this year? Or just kind of things that are lingering in the culture, your campus culture, that we can keep in mind? How can we just be working together and praying together?
Yeah, I'll just finish that. Since I mentioned two already, I'll reiterate them. One, encourage your high school students to at least come do a campus visit at Tabor College, and then come and recruiting our students into internships, and even if it's just into jobs in your community where they'll attend your church and lead. I think that's great. And another one that was mentioned already is financial support. Mm-hmm. Tabor requires, I said it at my inauguration, there's three key things for our continued survival. We've got to have students that come. We have to have staff to serve them and teach them. We have to have supporters that help make this all happen. And the financial support of people and of churches is crucial for the continuation of this, I think, very effective ministry.
Yeah, thank you again, Matt. And it's been a delight to be on with you and President Janzen. We were just together again a couple of weeks ago, and I feel like we're, as they say, brothers from another mother. We're in this together.
Yep.
And so just specifically in terms of prayer, I would say, one, we do have an upcoming board meeting this month. And so just pray for that as we navigate. Again, I think it's a complex time in higher ed, and we want to, what I've been praying for, Matt, is this concept of renewal on our campus, spiritual renewal as a foundation, but academic renewal and financial renewal and campus renewal, just all of these things. But this really the spiritual renewal, I sense a hunger and thirst from our students, from our community. And I just know that there's an enemy who's against that. And so I would just ask for those listening to say a prayer for the work that is being done on both of our campuses. This is sacred work. And I believe that God he's pleased in working in and through us to do his will and good pleasure. So pray for that. And yeah, I think that's it. I think President Janzen said, I could say ditto, and so, but yeah, I just pray for that work. God is on the move. He's always moving. Where can we join him? I think giving us eyes to see and ears to hear, mouths to speak and hands to heal, right? To redeem what those things that are broken. Students are coming with a lot of issues, right? Good and bad. Faculty and staff, we all live real lives. And so just pray for us in the front lines of this great ministry.
I get to go out to a lot of churches, and I've thoroughly enjoyed that. I've enjoyed meeting so many people, and so feel free to invite us. I guess I would put that out there, that, whether it's myself or Wendell Lowen or somebody else, or our worship team goes out, especially, if you're close enough within a few hours of Hillsborough, and we love coming and being a part of that. And I would echo what Andre said, is we covet your prayers. These are really hard jobs. And, I can say that for having been in it now my third year, and Andre's just a year behind that. And we talked to other college presidents. Higher education is a really challenging space to be in. And so we would really appreciate the prayers of people, just for wisdom, for peace, for the ability to sleep at night. When we've got a million things on our mind, and just time to spend with our spouses, and good marriages and those things. So we really appreciate your prayers.
Well, thanks again to both of you for leading these institutions and these young people. We're really grateful. It's a ministry for you both. I know that. So thank you both for your efforts. We'll be praying for you, and thanks for your time today. Always great to be with both of you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Thanks for having us.
Yep. Thank you, Matt and Andre.
Save the date for USMB Gathering 2024 in Omaha, Nebraska, July 23rd through the 27th, 2024. The National Pastors Conference will be July 23rd through the 25th, followed by the National Convention for Everyone, July 25th through the 27th. The theme is Salt and Light, Faithful Living in a Secular Culture. For more information, visit www.usmb.org/USMB-Gathering-2024 or call 1-800-257-0515.
Well, Dr. Janzen and Dr. Stephens, it's always a pleasure to talk with you, so thanks again so much for being on the podcast. And whenever I get the honor of talking with these guys, I just feel really encouraged, and there's just really good things happening on both of those campuses. So, man, being a college president, I just can't imagine the stress and the pressures that they feel each day. That is a very difficult job, especially in the culture that we're in. So let's continue to keep these guys in our prayers, these campuses in our prayers, and these really great ministries. There's lots of good things happening. It's just good to hear from them firsthand. Well, I know many of you listening today are either pastors, church leaders, volunteer leaders of some capacity. We are officially in the holiday season. I know this is a busy, crazy time for all of you listening. Thanks for taking time out of that busy schedule to listen, and I just encourage you to really soak up this holiday season. Enjoy it for yourself. Spend time with your family in the midst of the craziness that comes with holiday ministries. We're all in this together, and you're going to make it, so hang in there, and thank you for your diligent work wherever you are working and listening today. Super grateful for you as well. So have a great week ahead. Thanks again for listening, and we'll look forward to seeing you here next time on Lead Pods.
Thanks for listening to Lead Pods. Make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing to our show wherever you're listening today. Learn more by visiting usmb.org. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll see you next time as we learn more practical tools to increase our impact together.